say, hey, guys, we shouldn't be putting up with this. Why are we putting up with this? We certainly wouldn't put up with it if any other group were being discriminated against in this way. So why do we not have the self-respect to kind of stand up for ourselves?
Well, I couldn't agree more. And it's not that we wouldn't be putting up with it if any other group was being discriminated against. It's that other group would not be putting up with it. And you see that. And there are groups who just won't put up with it. And I say that with admiration, because why would anyone put up with racism, especially since anti-racism, being against racism, is our state religion? So, I mean, how paradoxical that in a country where the one thing you can't be is racist, that anti-white racism is enshrined in law, custom, and culture, and no one mentions it.
I agree. It's mysterious. And I think one of the encouraging things is when I started to write this book a couple of years ago, and when I started even more thinking about writing this book a few years before that, a lot of this stuff felt very taboo to even mention, even though it's obviously, as you just noted, it's obviously self-evidently true, and therefore it shouldn't be taboo at all. And I think one of the encouraging things is that we're beginning to see people, and you've really been a stalwart on this, but there've been other folks in the media environment, folks like Matt Walsh and Charlie Kirk, and there have been politicians, guys like J.D. Vance, who are kind of now speaking up, and they aren't just saying like, hey, it's fine. You know, you can just go discriminate against white people and that's fine. We're not going to say anything, or we're going to be too cowed. We're going to be too intimidated. I've really seen an improvement in the dialogue just in the time even I've been writing this book. But at the same time, there's still a long way to go before we really kind of reach a point where we can have a candid conversation about this stuff that is actually based on reality rather than a left-wing fantasy.
I guess what bothers me a little bit is that, you know, the justification for hurting whites has always been effectively a species of the reparations argument. Like, you know, whites have hurt other people, therefore it's their turn in the barrel or something like that. You need to make up for something that your ancestors did, I guess. But that, I guess, kind of works sort of maybe if you're talking about the majority. But the second whites are no longer in the majority, and that's going to happen very, very soon, maybe already has happened. We don't know because we don't know the real population numbers because of illegal immigration. But we're right on the edge of the whites not being the majority. Like at that point, do whites get to say, well, now I want, you know, some advantage in college admissions. Now I want my kids to go to Harvard for free. And I want government contracts in a preferential way. Like, what happens then? Or does the anti-white hate just get louder?
Well, that's the concern. And I think one of the things, again, I talk about in the book is we are essentially moving, as you just alluded to what is effectively a post-white America. Now, how quickly we get that depends on whether Joe Biden ever decides that he's going to shut the border and whether the Republicans are ever actually going to do anything if he continues to refuse to. But we're headed in that direction.
It slows it down, but it wouldn't stop anything. You're always going to trend towards mixed, you know, at least.
And so then the question becomes, when you look at the history of multi-ethnic countries where you have unequal resource distribution and whatever else, that is a recipe historically, not in every case, but in many, many cases for violence. And so that should be of great concern to us.
Yeah,
and again, I didn't write this book with the notion that, hey, you know, we just are writing this for white people and white people should be the only one caring.
If people haven't really even had the courage to talk about this openly, then there's not going to be any, don't worry about any violence. That's not going to happen. There would be violence anyway. And obviously I don't want violence and not condoning it. There would be violence anyway if you have scarcity of resources, regardless of all this stuff. So yeah, that would happen. But let's say we don't have a scarcity of resources. There's not going to be violence if you don't have people even speaking right now. It's happening.
About it, every American who is interested in living in what is going to be a multi-ethnic country that gives hopefully equal rights to everybody should be concerned about this issue, because if we don't treat a very large group fairly, then there are going to be some people who just say, I'm not going to put up with that. And who knows where that leads, but not anywhere good, I wouldn't think.
Well, and you already see it at the margins. You don't want people to be radical.
No, it could lead somewhere good that's peaceful, at least an attempt to be peaceful. Wait for it. Peaceful secession. Yeah, that would be a good thing. And that's the only way I see that you can fix this.
Radicalized. You don't want people to have to be radicalized along racial lines because they're irresolvable. Opinions change, skin color doesn't. So if we have any kind of race conflict, it can go on for many generations, and has, of course. But I think about South Africa, which in 1994, when it was handed voluntarily to the ANC, had nuclear weapons. And now parts of the country don't have consistent electricity. So the ANC's totally destroyed the country. It's a black party. And yet they're still blaming whites, the small minority of South Africans who are whites, for all the problems.
The farmers.
And so you're thinking, well, if that's the future here, like, that's very grim, I think.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm not so dire. I don't think, fortunately, things are so dire here that we're likely to wind up in a South African situation where they can't even keep the power on. But I do worry that we may be Brazilianizing our society, where you essentially have a few people kind of at the very top living with guards, kind of under a lot of security, and things are maybe kind of good for them. And everybody else is sort of, in a much worse sort of situation. And you kind of have certain types of very polarizing racial politics beginning even to emerge in Brazil as well. So I think, I'm not worried that we're going to turn into South Africa tomorrow because of that. But given America and given our history and traditions and the great beacon of freedom and opportunity that we've been for everybody, to even take a step in that direction is just something that we should do everything that we can.
Well, we're trending towards that direction. And this is the famous clip from, I don't know, it's from a while back. It was just posted today, but video was actually from, I don't know, 2 years ago, a year ago. And they're yelling, "Unlive the whites, unlive the white farmer." It's crazy.
Shoot to kill, Yamaza, kill the poor, the farmer, kill the poor, the farmer, brr, pa, pa, brr, pa, pa. Attention.
So we're trending towards that direction, and we're not there, because that gets you to pure black. I mean, right now, you have Joe Biden and the deep state that's behind him still running things, and that's not really going to change. So it's not going to look like that here. But here's an article from Forbes on it. They said what to know about this chant. And this is from last year, August. A chant of a song called "Unlive the Boer" at a political rally in South Africa over the weekend sparked pushback in both South Africa and the United States, including from South African-born Elon Musk. So the debate kind of popped off because that's where a lot of these things pop off. And this person here, Malema, who is black, defended the song in a press conference and attacked Elon Musk, saying he looks like an illiterate. The only thing that protects him is his white skin. That doesn't exactly help the concerns. The song dates back to racially divided South Africa's apartheid system of race-based segregation under white minority rule, which ended in the early 90s. The most recent chants were led by political leader Malema during a packed rally of nearly 100,000 people at an event, marking the 10th anniversary of his left-wing political party, Economic Freedom Fighters, in Johannesburg, South Africa's largest city. The song is a reference to white, and we actually seen some of them unlived after this. I don't know the details of who, but the song is a reference to white South African farmers who are descendants of European colonists known as the Boers. Though University of Johannesburg political instructor Bagnani Kalilunga and Nelson Mandela University historian Namlanga Mitski told the Times the song is not intended to incite violence against the country's largely white landowners, but rather to mobilize support against apartheid discrimination. You could have fooled me, but it's not going to play out exactly like that here. That's for sure. It couldn't. It's trending towards something that is unsavory, something that is concerning for sure, but it's not going to be exactly like what you see there. Let's pick this.
Middle MAGA.